Today, I want to share why we would like to homeschool. Hello, if you are new here, my name is Abby, and I would love if you would consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing why my husband and I are leaning towards homeschooling, why it's something we would really like to try, and why we're interested in it. Kind of from the positive and the negative viewpoint, meaning what we don't like about typical schooling and what we do like about homeschooling. I am really excited to share my thoughts on this because I wasn't really homeschooled. I had 1 year of homeschooling, which honestly was not a very positive experience. But after learning more about homeschooling and other people's homeschooling experiences, I just think it's a great option for our family, maybe for other families. I'm just excited to talk about it. So let's just dive right in. So first of all, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I'm home with my kids all day. I love being home with my kids. There are days that it's hard. There are periods that are hard, but as a general rule, I just really love being home with my kids. I also think it's super important to be home with your kids. After reading Erica Commissar's Being There, that book really changed my perspective on how important it is to be present for the first 3 years of your child's life. Then I read, and I'm currently reading, Hold On to Your Kids, which is a great book all about why kids are peer-oriented these days as opposed to like parent-oriented, and how they cling on to peers and try to learn from them, which is a really dangerous cycle, as opposed to going to adults for guidance on things. I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, but essentially, I started to realize that I really wanted to have my kids home with me for the long haul. And I have a good number of reasons for why, and I think that there really can be broken into positive and negative things. I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I feel like I kind of want to keep this video chatty because the fact of the matter is this is a really interesting, almost hot topic these days. People are always throwing around words like, oh, your kids aren't going to be socialized. What does socialized even mean today? Does it mean that your kids are going to be the kind that are always on their iPads or have a phone at 7 years old or are rude to adults? Like, what does socialized mean? Yes, I want my kids to be good at interacting with other kids, but my kids are with other kids so much of the day. Like, we go out every single morning. So again, this is going to be more chatty because I think this is just an interesting conversation. So let's get a little more specific here. So when I say positive and negative things, what I mean is there are positive reasons to homeschool. There are reasons we want to homeschool. And then there are negative reasons for regular schooling that we would like to avoid. So let's start with the reasons we would like to homeschool. So let's start off with siblings. One of the coolest things about homeschooling is that your kids actually get to spend time together. My husband and I were just recently chatting about how once you have your kids in school, they are separated from each other for the majority of their childhood because they are spending most of their time in separated grades where they don't see each other a lot. And the times they do see each other, it's like it's stressful because you're trying to get out, or it's dinner time, or it's the morning where you're trying to go to school, or it's on weekends where their friends are already the friends that they've made in school, so they don't really want to spend time with their siblings. So this is, in my mind, part of the issue with the peer orientation thing is if your kids are spending all of their time with kids who are exactly their age, those are going to become their friends. And then their siblings become an annoyance. I would love for our kids to spend the majority of their time with each other and really view one another not just as annoying siblings, but as friends. And yes, they will have friends additionally. They probably won't view age as strictly like, oh, you're in my grade, so we can be friends, and you're 1 grade below me, so we can't. But they'll definitely still have friends their age because co-ops exist. There are so many social opportunities, sports. There are so many ways to have your kids spend time with kids that aren't their siblings. So why not make the majority of their schooling and their day-to-day with one another so you don't have to deal with that constant stress of your kids not really liking to spend time with each other? Because if they do it all the time, that's what they know. Like that's good to them. And so I'm really excited at that prospect. Now, again, I don't know that this is all going to work out, right? These are all hypotheticals because I haven't started. But these are things that make me feel encouraged. The next thing is we get to learn and share a lot of different perspectives on the subjects they're learning, as opposed to normal school where you get your history book and there's one way to view history and it's what your history book says. And a lot of the time that stuff is a terrible viewpoint. It leaves things out. It includes more of one thing or another. It's got a leftist lean. Like there's a lot of dangers to being taught history in one specific way. With homeschooling, you can present a lot of different perspectives. We can present so many different alternatives to just the one narrative that people are taught in normal school. And I think that's such a cool opportunity, is that our kids are gonna have so much more time to do that too. Homeschooling only takes a couple of hours a day because it's not a daycare, whereas normal school is a daycare, so that's why school takes so long. It also has to follow the slowest student as opposed to the fastest student. And so if the slowest student is taking a while, the fastest student kind of just has to find something to do. Yes, that's a little bit true in homeschooling because you're doing it with your own family, but it's definitely different, right? Because you've got less people you're trying to maintain a pace with. And one of the things I love about kind of homeschooling too is you get to use your own method of school. So we love a lot of different kinds. We want to incorporate a lot of different kinds. We're not like, this is it. We're not just doing Charlotte Mason or just doing Montessori. We're doing like a mixture of things. But one of the things I really like from Montessori is the idea that your child is going to take an interest in different things at different times. And so making it so that they have to learn this thing right now because that's the curriculum, as opposed to, oh, they're taking an interest in this, so let's focus on the thing that they're interested in, and then we can move on to something different when they're interested in that. I love that, because saying that everyone needs to be on the same track for learning is like saying that every 2-year-old fits into the same size clothes. Like, it's just not an accurate understanding of how the human mind works. The next positive, amazing thing about doing homeschooling is inculcating a love of learning. I think that for so many kids, learning becomes a burden for so many reasons, right? Like maybe like what we were just talking about, maybe your kid doesn't like what you're learning right now and they're being forced to focus on a subject that this just doesn't click for them in this moment. Or maybe they have a bad teacher, which happens all the time. And I hear this and it drives me crazy, is where someone's like, yeah, my kid hates their teacher. I guess this is just gonna be a bad year. A bad year of learning? Are you crazy? Like, that's so crazy to me. Or there's a ton of homework and they hate the homework. Or maybe they're just not liking school. Like, there are a lot of reasons, right? I'm also in the middle of a book called Weapons of Mass Instruction, which talks about how schooling as we know it came to be and like why it is this way. And first of all, fascinating book. I need to continue with it because I've currently got about 10 books on my to-do list, but it's the concept of learning as a way to make people submissive in a way, as opposed to encouraging like an entrepreneurial spirit or encouraging people to be creative. Just saying like there's a right answer and a wrong answer, and questions really aren't what we want. We want people to understand it as we present it, and that's it. I can understand why you would lose a love of learning. So it's interesting. I was actually talking to my friend Nikki Philippi, and a huge reason that I'm interested in homeschooling is because of her, because she was homeschooled and she had such an amazing experience with it. And she told me how she was at a point before she started homeschooling where she hated learning, and that homeschooling then made her a lifelong learner. Like, she loved to learn. And it makes me so nervous, the idea of just driving the love of learning out of my children. I'm so excited at the idea of having them love to learn. And so I really think that homeschooling is the best way to do that, is a really amazing way to do that. Another great thing about homeschooling is you get to save money. Now, if you're public schooling, that's a different matter, but public school is, to me, completely off the table, because what they're learning in public schools is so far in the wrong direction, just so dangerous. But outside of that, if you're sending your kids to private schools, I mean, homeschooling will save you a ton of money, and that sounds great. Like, I would love to not spend so much on my children's education when I am perfectly willing and capable to teach them myself. You know, I think there are some people who are reticent to have bigger families, especially in religious communities where having a big family is like part and parcel of the lifestyle. They're a little more reticent to have more children because of the cost of schooling. And if I can take that worry off the table by saying I'll do the homeschooling, and we can have as big a family as we want. I also love the idea of extracurriculars. Like I said, homeschooling takes up so much less of the day than typical schooling, so we can do so many different things. We can explore so many different interests. It's literally endless when you think about all of the different things we can do. We can teach them how to fish. We can teach our kids how to cook or bake. We can teach our kids how to sew or to learn an instrument. Like, there's just gonna be so many more hours for them to explore their interests. And that is such a cool thing to me. So I'm super excited about that too. Okay, so that's my list of like positives for why we would like to homeschool. So why don't we want to do typical schooling? The first thing I want to talk about, which I kind of touched on earlier, is behavior. People are always talking about socialization. And I don't see children who go to typical school having good behavior or having good manners, because they're learning from their peers and they're not with their parents the majority of their time. I think we see kids acting really poorly, and not just acting, having bad manners and acting poorly, but also having bad habits. Like, you get kids who think it's normal to act rude or to be on their iPads or whatever else it is. I think that there's just a lot of negatives to the model that we have now, where kids are just not spending a ton of time with their parents, where their parents can influence their behavior more. When your kids are in school, as parents, you have such a limited time to inculcate good behavior in your children. And those that do it, it's amazing, but I think it's so much easier to inculcate good behavior in your kids when they're home with you. So that's another element that I think is really important. Hand in hand with that is the concept of being peer-oriented. So like I said, I mentioned the book, Hold On to Your Kids, and that book also really influenced me. Now, I actually haven't finished the book, so I don't know whether or not he recommends homeschooling as the solution, but he talks a lot about peer attachment versus parent attachment, and how important it is for parents to be the primary attachment for kids, because parents are the ones who actually have life experience when we're teaching our children lessons. And when our children are attached to their peers, there's a whole host of problems that come with that, but it also includes that their peers have no life experience and they're the ones teaching each other lessons. So when your kids are learning lessons from someone who doesn't know anything, they're going to be learning bad lessons. And I don't see that turning out well. I only have such a short amount of time to influence how my kids turn out and make them good, upstanding members of society and help them in their pursuit of good and happiness. And I would really like to be involved in that. And I think that obviously every parent is, but giving myself the best possible chance by being more available is such a great opportunity that I am not willing to turn down. Now this one, who knows, but I'm gonna mention it anyway. I have 2 sons, and boys get diagnosed with ADHD at the drop of a hat these days. And in my opinion, I would much rather have my children at home where they can work for 2 hours on schoolwork and then get all their energy out for the rest of the day than have my kids being forced to sit in a classroom and then being told that they can't focus because they're boys and they're children and they need to move. Like, even with my older son now, if he doesn't take a nap in the middle of the day, he gets incredibly touchy. Like, he wants to touch everything, open everything, explore everything. If he gets a nap, he has a little more self-control. But if he doesn't get a nap, that is his go-to. If he was in school, it's possible they would diagnose him with ADHD. I, as his mom, can say he needs a nap. Or I can say, oh, he needs to run around in circles for like 2 minutes and then he's good. Like, I can see what he really is doing because I spend all day with him, as opposed to someone telling me, your kid doesn't sit in class, I think he's ADHD. I want my sons to have the best opportunity to learn in an environment that's actually conducive to boys learning. Now, another thing that people talk about as far as homeschooling is like, oh, you want to keep your kids in a bubble. You don't want them to be exposed to the outside world's ideas. I read something somewhere that it's like a greenhouse. You want to give them everything that you can and let them grow and flourish in an environment that is a little more safe before you transfer them out into the real world. Why do we have to expose our children to the worst possible things, the lowest of the low, right away when they're just seedlings, and then expect them to thrive out in the world? Like, I'm sorry. I think that children's minds need a little support first before they can kind of go out there and figure it all out. So if you want to call it a bubble, okay. But I think that what it really is that we're giving our children the best possible tools to thrive in the world, as opposed to, get out of the nest, be independent, you don't need me, from the age of like 2. Like, I'm sorry, no thank you. I think that we have so much more that we can offer as parents. I think my role as parent matters, is what it comes down to. I think that it's not, I have my baby and now I'm not gonna I don't wanna impress my view of the world on my children. Absolutely not. You have a really important role to play in your children's lives. And for me, that looks right now like homeschooling. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you were homeschooled, I would love to hear your thoughts and how you liked it. And I would love to hear if you have any tips if you are a homeschooling mom. If you watched all the way till the end of today's video, leave a dog emoji for no reason, just because it's fun. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.